Hey everyone, my name is Tim Wade, and this is the Safety Wire Podcast. So before I get into the information that I wanted to put out through our episode, I wanted to thank everybody. The Safety Wire Podcast gained its 200th follower through LinkedIn and simultaneously gained its 100th follower through Spotify. And that would not be possible without you guys liking, commenting, having open discussions about it, and sharing the channel. So thank you guys so much for sharing this with everybody. My intention was to grow this channel into a great educational platform to bring aviation safety to everybody in our industry and make safety a little more attainable and a little more palatable so people can kind of understand the inner workings of aviation safety. So thank you for all the love and support to the channel. And now for the real reasons we're here. About a month ago, I put out a video called Confusing Safety Part 1, and I wanted this to be the follow-up to that, where I address a few questions that have come in through LinkedIn and what people are a little confused about these days. So the first one is going to be how to gain a better understanding of OSHA. Now, OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, is not just specific to aviation, obviously. It broadens out into almost every industry that we face here in the United States. But the regulations tend to be very confusing if you're not comfortable with them, if you're not familiar with them, if you're not operating a massive safety team where you can constantly be in the regulations. Say your director of safety has another side job throughout your organization. It could be difficult to keep up with the regulations, especially as they change from day to day. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information on how to better understand the OSHA regulations. And then speaking of education, another question was brought up of what education is required to be in a safety department, to be a manager of safety, director of safety, or first line safety manager. Okay, so we're going to touch on both of those. So the first question is, how do we better understand the OSHA regulations? Now, I will say there's no replacement for education when it comes to understanding OSHA. So the first thing I would suggest is to get online. If you go to OSHA.gov, there's a tab called Help and Resources. Scroll down and you will see, I'm looking at mine right now, OSHA Training Institute Education Centers. Okay, once you click that, it'll show you area schools in your area, online, abroad, where they have educational classes to better understand the OSHA regulations, and they also have certification courses. You might have heard of HAZWOPER, OSHA 10, OSHA 30. How do I get those cards? You'll get them through these centers, all right? You're able to sign up for the courses. There's a small fee attached to it, and you're able to go to class. A lot of times they move around into your cities, and you can find a class coming up that is near you. That'll be your first step in getting some really decent OSHA education. Because you don't know what you don't know until you go to class and see it firsthand. Once you have an understanding of OSHA and where your regulations are and what applies to you, at least generally what applies to you, then you can start digging into the regulations, all right? Don't get too dangerous with that at that point. Your regulations are found in two places, OSHA.gov and ECFR.gov. ECFR is the Electronic Code of Federal Regulations, and so when you look at ECFR.gov, you will see two things. First up, you will see the regulations, which is in black and white by the book what OSHA says you need to be doing, and then you'll see letters of interpretation. The reason they have all of these letters of interpretation is so that way you can try to apply it back to your specific situation, your specific industry. The letters of interpretation is OSHA actually going back to somebody who requested information on what do I do in this situation, and you will see an actual OSHA investigator replying back to that person. Usually, so the letters of interpretation are a great avenue to find out how to apply that regulation to your specific industry. So we have our education centers for the courses. We have our online regulations, OSHA.gov and ECFR.gov. And then the last bit of information I would suggest is do research on legal counsel in your area that you can discuss openly current situations you might be going through. A legal counsel would be a workers' comp lawyer or an OSHA lawyer who has gone through and defended organizations with citations, with informal conferences, with OSHA hearings. They will have a better understanding of how to guide you in those areas. And if you are a smaller organization and you don't feel comfortable taking on an informal conference or an OSHA citation on your own, I would highly recommend having legal counsel in your corner so that way you feel supported if you are actually going head-to-head with OSHA or if you have an incident happening in your facility. So those are the three areas to gather education: your education centers, your regulations, and then people who have devoted their careers and their livelihoods to actually supporting businesses going through OSHA-related issues. All right, and the second question that was brought up was, what is the education required to obtain a safety position? So first up, there are multiple different positions in safety you'll see, and normally the titles range from entry level at the safety specialist position all the way through manager, director, vice president, into the C-suite, what you will see as a chief safety officer. That's normally the spectrum they take. Every organization is different. Every industry is different, so the titles might vary, but you will see entry level all the way up to C-suite level normally. The entry level positions, degrees are great. I'm never going to knock any education. However, I would not look at them as a requirement for entry level into safety. And I think a lot of people have gotten on board with that. You expect a 4-year degree for someone who is coming in as entry level. I view entry level as not much experience, so a degree should not be required. But I would like to see a little experience there. So say you're coming out of the automotive industry, you were turning wrenches, but you volunteered a little bit onto the safety team. You have some experience in safety. When I say OSHA, when I say authority having jurisdiction, when I say regulations, that person will understand what I'm talking about, at least a little bit of core knowledge at that point. So maybe they got their OSHA 10 card, they have their OSHA 30, CPR, something like that. Something that says they have more than just an interest that this field might be cool, and they've actually taken the time to get a little education behind them. All right, nothing more than a few credentialing courses for your entry-level folks. Once they start moving past entry level from the specialist, getting up into manager, maybe a high level specialist, that's when you'll start to see the associate's degree for occupational health and safety come out, maybe an environmental science degree, something along the lines of EHS will be necessary once you start broadening out from your entry level. Because what a degree shows an organization isn't that you have knowledge in that field. Usually that's when the credentials come in and the certifications and the experience. That's your knowledge in the field. The degree normally stands for, I can manage my time, I can manage resources, I can manage people. I have been involved in projects, I have been involved in an organization that comes together for an end goal, which would be your diploma at the end of that. Okay, so that's what your degree is going to stand for. The higher up you go in management, the bigger the degree should be accompanying that. All right. And I would say it should probably top out at a bachelor's degree. There's nothing wrong with getting your master's or your PhD in safety, but those are more or less reserved for actively doing research that is influential to the industry. Okay, so for your managers, I like to see an associate's, possibly into the bachelor's. Once you get into the director level and moving up into VP, CSO, a bachelor's degree is great. Once again, it really stands for the ability to manage time and resources. The core knowledge, though, is direct certifications, direct credentialing that shows me you have education that is streamlined across the board. Because when it comes down to the degrees, every university has their own coursework that they are giving you for that degree. You might have a bachelor's in occupational health and safety, and I have a bachelor's in occupational health and safety, and you and I could have taken completely different course loads and know completely different things. But if I take my OSHA 30 class, or if I take a HAZWOPER class, you and I both have the exact same set of information. It's based on regulation. I know what that person knows at that time. Okay, so the credentials and the certifications are extremely important to back up your knowledge piece, and the ability to manage that comes with your degrees. Okay, so that's usually what you'll see in the safety field of how to progress yourself actively through your positions in safety. It's not just a degree that's going to get you in the door. A little bit of knowledge and experience is super helpful, and as you progress through your career, the more knowledge, education, and experience you can gain is always going to be great. All right. So hopefully that shed some light on the questions that were posed throughout the past month. Cannot thank you guys enough for all of the questions, concerns, and comments, sharing the channel and supporting the channel. Truly grateful for that. So thank you, everybody. Once again, this has been the Safety Wire Podcast. Please like and subscribe on any platforms you might be viewing this. Take care.